My mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with guns.
Oh, yeah. Good intro. I love it. And that other guy gave me a copyright, so I can't do him anymore. Hopefully everybody's having a good morning today. As usual, lots to talk about. We had no government shutdown on Friday. Chuck Schumer crossing the aisle in order to be able to make it to where the Republicans got their bill passed, which is great because, again, now we're on to the next stage, which is going to be reconciliation, and that's a 51% approval, and that's going to be a huge omnibus bill. It's going to be massive. It's going to get a bunch of stuff done. That's exciting. We're fighting back with the Houthis so that we can open up the Red Sea. That's exciting. We've got Trump talking to Putin today and saying that we might maybe even have some kind of peace deal enacted by the end of the day. That's exciting. We've got Trump saying that Biden's executive orders are null and void because they were used with AutoPen, and on numerous of these orders, he wasn't even around when they were done. So that's contentious and should be a lot of fun. But again, I think it's 100% legitimate. I don't think Biden was running anything at the end. We had the University of Michigan data last week. Incredibly biased survey. We'll look at that. Again, it's super political. No real signal to be given out of it. Lots of people talking about it over the weekend and on Friday. But again, there's nothing there. So it's not even worth looking at. Polling looking great. Lots of good stuff with polling. We've got best data from NBC poll of all things, and there's a bunch of other really positive polls. The outlook for the country being positive hit a 21-year high, according to their data. A little bit lower than that if I look at Real Clear polling data, where you have a bunch, again, leftist pollsters. Like when the election happened, and I told you guys that day that Trump was going to win. He was going to win everything. He was going to win the House. He was going to win the Senate. And he was going to crush the presidential vote. I knew that because I know how to look at the polling data. And that data, again, it's 21-year high for outlook of the country. Even though the narrative over this last week was pushing that Trump wasn't doing enough and that or doing too much and that everybody's disliking him and everybody's disheartened, none of that's true. On top of that, Democrats had the worst polling on record. So let's just look at that real quick. So we've got negative views of Democrats here. This is going back, again, NBC News poll, all the way back. The worst approval ratings going all the way back since this polling started in what, the 90s? Yeah, 1990. So 35 years worth of polling data. People have never looked at Democrats more negatively than they are today. That's pretty amazing. And again, the direction of the country polling, you can see how there's a similar uptick. This is, again, including all of the stuff, and there's some real garbage polling data out there. Reuters Ipsos, not great. Economist YouGov, not great. These are probably the worst. And then NBC isn't even that great. Harvard Harris, I like to call that the Kamala Harris polling because, again, that's not great either. And NPR PBS, and Marist, I think it's called, I call that Marxist, because it's not much better either. Rasmussen's pretty decent, though. And again, they've got likely voters on here. So the -9 was probably legit, which means, again, the data's probably skewing even higher here and at those record levels that NBC was talking about, which is all very, very exciting. What else we got? Oh, I think, again, I've said this a bunch of times, but I think we have peak in tariffs in 2 weeks. But before we get there, there's somebody named Batya Ungar Sargon. She is a Jewish journalist who's always been on the left, and Bill Maher interviewed her this weekend, and she had some of the most eloquent discussions about the tariffs and about Trump and her views on it. And I know it set Bill Maher back a little bit, so I want to watch a couple of these videos. They're only a couple of minutes. And good morning, everybody. Morning, happy St. Patty's Day. I didn't even wear green. What am I thinking? That's how disconnected I am from the world. Good morning from Taiwan. Hey, what's up, man? What's up, JT? Let's see. Sean's in here. Mandela Effect 444. Joshua Gonzalez. Good morning, everyone. Jabi, good morning, sir. How low do you think Bitcoin can go? I don't know. Maybe it's already bottomed. It doesn't have to, though. It can go lower. But I really like the price action that we saw on Friday. Even though I was gone, I was picking up my wife's new Model Y, the brand spanking new one, the launch edition. I haven't even ridden in it yet. Looks cool, though. I sat inside of it for a second. I haven't even ridden in the last Model Y I picked up a week before that. And then Thursday of this next week, I will be on the road again picking up a Model 3 for my nephew. So that'll be my 5th Tesla. It'll be my 3rd this month to help support Tesla, and my 4th in the last year. So I'm pretty excited about it. Probably too much. I think I got $250,000 in car loans now. But, I was talking like Lambos and other stuff, so really it's a fraction, and it goes to help a lot of other people, which I like. Anyway, let's get to it. This is this interview with Bill Maher and Batya, and she just tears it up. I love it. Let's listen. And again, remember this woman? This woman has always been a liberal. Always. Remember.
Believes abortion should be legal for 12
Oh, wait.
weeks.
Wrong thing. Let me go back. All right, here we go.
I'm from just a conservative, leaning right to a Trump supporter. Okay, someplace I would never go. And
I mean, the night is young,
He might.
Bill.
He might.
it is not ever going to be that young. And I'm just wondering what you think now. We're approaching 2 months in. I mean, you must have a feeling in your gut. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't. That this is really going badly, and I shouldn't have thrown my lot in with this team.
Oh, no, I feel the opposite.
All right. Tell me why.
I'm so sorry, Bill.
No, tell me why.
No, I feel so proud of, I mean, I was never a Republican or a conservative. I was a leftist, and I am still a leftist. I'm just a MAGA leftist now because...
That makes no sense.
That makes no sense.
Well, would you like me to explain it to you, Bill?
Please do. Yes, please.
When I look at what President Trump ran on and the agenda that he's enacting right now, he took a Republican Party that was built on social conservatism, foreign interventions and wars, and free trade and free markets. And he basically took an axe to all of those. During the campaign, he said, look, I mean, he's pretty pro-gay. That's pretty obvious. He appointed the highest-ranking out gay person, Scott Bessent, our Secretary of Treasury, which is incredible. And he sidelined the pro-life wing of his party.
He has changed the party, for sure.
Okay, so he believes abortion should be legal for 12 weeks.
But free trade, you
on
mentioned.
foreign intervention, he's anti-war. He's trying to bring
Yes.
to an end to all of these wars, okay?
By surrendering, but yes.
Okay.
Me too, JT.
I mean,
So unless you have a clear victor on the battlefield, then you have to have surrender on all sides, right? Isn't that the way it works, I think?
that is one
Unless you want continued war.
way to end the war.
Well, he's on the other side of another party that is quite pro-war and wants to keep the war going, right?
But
so
let's- but
so
what
let me just
about
get to
these-
the third point. And the third point is, and he's not free trade. He does not believe in free trade. He looked at our destroyed manufacturing base. He looked at the downwardly mobile working class. He looked at the fact that working class Americans can no longer afford the American dream. And he looked at why that was, which was there was a handshake agreement between both parties that we should somehow have free trade, which resulted in shipping 5 million good manufacturing jobs overseas to build up China and Mexico.
And some came here.
No.
No, what they did was they
Some-
brought in millions and millions of illegal
Yes.
migrants to compete with the jobs that remained here. And what Donald Trump said was, we have to stop selling out the working class.
Yeah, and she's 100% right. So not only did she clarify that point with him, that we shipped all the jobs overseas, which is, again, why working people are pissed at the Democratic Party, because that's, again, globalism. It did not benefit them, okay? It just gave them drugs to take and just, collecting money from the government, and no more coal jobs, no more any manufacturing producing of anything. And then at the same time, they shipped in a bunch of illegal immigrants to compete in the job market with these same fucking people. She touches on every point here. It's beautiful.
That agenda that he laid out, socially moderate, anti-war, and anti-free trade
And this-
protectionist, that is a leftist
Sam, I will
agenda.
bring you in, I swear to
appreciate
God.
that.
She's right. She's 100% right. It's a leftist agenda, and I think it's beautiful that she was able to articulate this. There's one other video I want to get to. Let me go back here real quick. That she talks about. We got a lot to go over. There's a lot of good stuff in this, but let's listen to this other one here real quick too, where she kind of digs in a little bit further in this interview. It's such a great interview. Lots of good interviews over the weekend.
The reason people want to go back to the 70s is in the 70s, the largest share of our GDP was in the middle class. And that was not separate from the fact that 25% of our economy was in manufacturing.
Right, the largest share of our GDP
was in the middle class, the biggest chunk, the middle class,
most
people
of
who
what
are
was
middle
produced
income.
came from the middle, and now it
Yes.
comes from what? The rich.
Now, the top 20% controls over 50% of the GDP. Our economy was an upward funnel of wealth, and the largest share, which used to be in manufacturing, which gave a lot of working class people a middle class standard of living, now the largest share is in real estate and finance, meaning that asset rich Americans are controlling over 50% of the GDP, and they have left the working
Brilliant.
class out of all of that prosperity that was generated.
Yep.
That manufacturing is still being done. It's just being done in other countries. It is still
For wages
making,
we will not work
That's exactly
for.
right. You're right, Bill. That's what the tariffs are for.
Fuck yeah. She's so great. And yes, you're right. She is super cute, Sebastian. But yeah, so she's hitting on all points here. And he's like, oh, but we won't work for those wages that you shipped overseas. Yep, here we go.
They are to make American workers more competitive in the global market. Why are we
Right.
accepting that there
No,
should be a
that's-
race to the bottom? You know, China, what is its competitive advantage over us? It's that it pays slave wages. Why should we accept that? They're still manufacturing our PPE, our pharmaceuticals, our cars. They're making all that stuff. Trump says there are 5 industries that we cannot have any kind of national security without having a stake in them. Pharmaceuticals, lumber, steel, aluminum, and I forget what the 5th one was. But these are really important, that we have a stake in the manufacturing of the things that we need as a
Copper.
nation, so that when China decides that it wants to go to war against us, we're not relying on them for steel and aluminum in order to fight them.
Okay.
Copper too.
Well, at least that's an answer.
See, did you hear that? Did you hear that collapse on Bill Maher's set, which is not an easy thing to do if you're talking about favorability towards Donald Trump. I thought she crushed it and did a wonderful job explaining exactly why Trump is doing what he's doing. There's so much winning happening right now. Literally, no government shutdown. One person crosses the aisle, and it's fucking Chuck Schumer. There's a lot going on right now, and yeah, somebody was talking about the auto pen. I did actually mention that earlier. Donald Trump said that basically all those executive orders, including exempting people from having to worry about prosecution, all that stuff is gone, null and void, because Biden wasn't even there. So everything Biden wasn't there for, and that he didn't fucking sign, doesn't count. And we don't even know about his mental state. He's a mess. I don't even know if he could talk to it right now. So these are going to be points that are going to be really positive for Republicans. And he's going after people, man. He's definitely going after people. But let's just read this real quick. My buddy Andreas, he said, media, Donald Trump has started a trade war. Actual backdrop, all other G20 countries have much worse trade barriers. Hopefully, Trump's trade war will bring global trade barriers down. Again, this is the opposite of the fucking narrative. And I don't know how many times I have to repeat the same shit over and over again. But his point, don't get me wrong, he'll take the revenues. We'll look at a video about that from my buddy Felix. But the point isn't just to collect additional revenue and create trade barriers that crush economies. It's not that. The point is to open up trade. He wants to have these other countries reduce their tariff rates against the United States so that we can get goods into their markets, so that we can benefit our manufacturing class. And if they don't want to fucking do that, they can build their shit here if they don't want to be tariffed. And so that, again, that resolves the issues that Batya was talking about, where we actually start to become builders and sellers of goods again. And we can be competitive on the world stage. So there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. But if you just look at this chart right here, it shows the United States, and this includes things like VAT, value-added tax, all the bullshit that other countries use in order to be able to say, oh, but we actually have a low tariff regime. Okay, but we do include this other stuff, which makes it impossible for you to be able to put goods into our market. Just like with Canada, the people who were posting last week, they're like, oh, but Canada, that's bullshit. Like Canada they have that huge tariff, but as long as you don't exceed the quota, then you don't have to pay the huge tariff. Yeah, no shit. They're limiting the amount of goods that we can sell into their market, right? That's why they have the 250% tariff, because then it doesn't make any fucking sense to sell anymore. So again, it's a trade barrier that we're trying to remove. But if you look here, look at this. Non-tariff barriers, tariff rate. So you can see the tariff rate in dark blue. You can see in the light blue non-tariff barriers. Look at all these countries. Mexico, Japan, Indonesia, Germany, France, Italy, Canada, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Brazil, China, Turkey, India, United Kingdom, South Korea, and Argentina, even though Argentina is getting ready to wipe out huge amounts of this and open up free trade with us. Probably we'll see an announcement, I would guess, in weeks on that one, if not sooner. So this is how unfairly we're being treated across the world. Look at China. Look at us. Look at China. Look at us. Okay. Just the tariff rate alone, including tariff and non-tariff barriers for the United States, is lower than the fucking tariff rate for China. We're going to fix all of this. And this is going to be incredibly beneficial for our economy in the United States. And people are going to start understanding that. Real quickly, I wanted to talk about this University of Michigan survey and how bullshit it is. So first off, we don't even know with accuracy what percentage these guys are putting in here in regard to the amount of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. I wouldn't trust shit coming out of Michigan. But if you look here, look at the inflation rate from Dems going from what they said before the election was what? 2% inflation to now 6.5%, even though eggs have dropped by fucking half. They're down to $4.11 or some shit now. So one could say that that's a little bit biased when they 3x that bitch overnight. And then independents, again, a decent amount of independents still get their news from the mainstream media. So they're still seeing inflation going up in their minds too. But Republicans have it down through the floor. So again, the truth is it didn't actually change that much and it went down. So don't care about surveys and judge the future of the investment world off of bullshit. Okay? You can listen to bullshit if you want to and gauge your investment future off of it. I won't. I'm looking for the truth. And yeah, once you stop murdering all the chickens, it's amazing how much better they are at hatching fucking eggs. TrendSpider, this pullback has mirrored the August 2024 yen carry trade fiasco very closely, peak to trough. Even daily RSI is turning up at the same time. We actually had a much steeper decline than that, right? And is it based off reality or is it based off fiction? I'm going to say it's based off fiction. Because I think the positioning that we're doing right now with our economy is going to be incredibly positive. And again, we'll look at more of that in a little bit. So I'm liking this bounce. I'm liking this bounce off of 2.5-year low in RSIs, going back to the middle of 2022. I like that bounce. Now, there is some caution here from a technical standpoint. Jake was talking about how, hey, we've still got this bearish divergence on the RSI, MACD and all this stuff rolling over, where at the same time we have this uptick. Now, one thing you're going to learn in life, though, you can have these bearish divergences and then have them still fucking break higher. And this isn't that long of a time frame. So I will say this. I do think, and on longer time frames, you do have something like this too. But it doesn't have to break now. It doesn't have to be indicative of anything happening right now. And if we do break down right now, I do think that the 500,000 that I have in TLT will start to play out. It hasn't been thus far, but it looks like it's making up for some of its losses. As today, the 10-year, let me just pull this over real quick. The 10-year today, guys, is down almost 1%. And again, these are lower highs each time. And this bitch looks like it wants to roll over. And you talk about divergence. I mean, we got divergence going back to 2022 on this one as well. So this thing wants to roll over as well. And so if for some reason the S&P continues to drop, I think the 10-year is going to go with it for the same reasons that the S&P is dropping, which is going to be like a slowing economy and things like that. It's not going to be because inflation's high. I'll fucking tell you that. And so if it's rolling over, then my TLT is going to go up, and then I can chip stuff off, and I can use that to buy into the market. I also still think that Bitcoin doesn't have much further to drop because, again, it's going to roll along with gold. It could drop down into the 60s. Totally fucking possible. Anybody telling you lower than that is retarded and doesn't know what they're talking about because that shit just isn't going to happen. All right, let's keep going here. I do want to talk about Scott Bessent because there's a lot of good stuff that happened over the weekend. He did some interviews too. I thought the second half of the year would be bad, but feel like we just ran into... No, I think it's the first half, man. I think that's what Kathy Wood's been talking about. Mike Howell's been talking about that. Really a bunch of people have, that the first half is going to be the rockier part. And And it's going to be the rockier part because of the tariffs. And again, I've been saying this too. The tariffs are something that can be perceived as negative, but I think their outcome is actually going to be a lot better than people realize. We're doing a lot of really good stuff. Let's read this quote, though, real quick about Bessent. It says, the American dream is not let them eat flat screens, that American families aren't able to afford a home, that if American families aren't able to afford a home, don't believe that their children will do better than they are. The American dream is not contention on cheap baubles from China. That is more than that, and we are focused on affordability, but it's mortgages, it's cars, it's real wage gains. And so we want those things to happen in this economy. We want to be competitive on the world stage. We want people to dream again. We want Doge to reduce the cost of goods, or the cost of our federal spending, so that we can get that $5,000 fucking dollar check. Nobody's talking about that right now, but that's coming. It's coming because we've almost paid for half of it already. And we're in not even a couple fucking months into this presidency, and we've already paid for half of what we're going to do for this Doge check. So stimulus is coming, and stimulus is coming by the middle of this fucking year. And people are going to talk about it more before it actually happens. So the market looks ahead. So you've got to be realizing that if we're getting stimulus passed in checks, and we're getting like no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and we're getting $5,000 checks by the middle of this year, you think it's really going to be that bad? I don't. We're talking end of May, early June. And again, everybody thought this government shutdown was going to fucking happen, and it didn't. Because Democrats crossed the fucking aisle, even at the persecution of their own party. All right, Matt Haugen. What is he again? He's a cool guy. Yeah, he's the CIO of Bitwise Invest, co-founder of this future-proof headquarters. He's a cool guy. He's very smart. He said, the ECB says it will limit the amount of money that you can store in digital euros to, in their words, prevent excessive outflows of deposits from banks. It's never a good sign when an economy is trying to lock people in. It's insane, actually. Quantitative tightening is ending. Haven't we been talking about that? Here, I'll take this one off because we already discussed it. Haven't we been talking about quantitative tightening ending? Also, I said, first and foremost, we should do what's right by this country and not our pocketbooks. And that's what we're doing. But it's going to help our pocketbooks a lot fucking quicker than people realize. Let's listen real quick here. Am I buying BMAX today? I don't even know what it is. And I don't think I've talked about it. So I'm going to say no. 1 second here. Let's listen. This is great. This was an all-in podcast interview. This dude's a comedian. He's got his pedo stash on there, which is a little creepy, but he's funny as shit. And let's listen to what he and the rest, and I think Chamath and a few others that he's engaging with, have to say about what we're doing with the economy here and where our priorities are.
Every American thinks they're going to be a millionaire. That's what this country drives off of.
That hope, yeah.
And the second they stop thinking they will be,
it was good.
Or they can be,
it falls apart. I'm telling you, like, the you guys of the world need to pay close attention to, because there's going to be no empathy if anything bad happens. Oh, the stock market is down. No Americans are invested in the stock market. Like,
so this is actually it's like half, right? But it's not the bottom half, and that's what he's getting to. And Chamath has a really good response to this.
that's all you guys.
Half of the country is.
I've been saying it for months. Nobody cares about the stock market, nor should we. And the reason is because we, people who own these assets, have overly benefited more than we've deserved for the last 15 years. Ever since the great financial crisis in the United States, people who, as Jason said, could cozy up. If you could have lobbied Obama in those critical years of the GFC,
Yep.
oh my God, we took interest rates literally to zero. Anybody like us who could have gone and gotten levered up and gone into the stock market was richly rewarded. And the problem is we left everybody else behind. And I think the great thing about Trump is he is going to reset that. He is going to take a lot of wealth away from asset holders. There is no sympathy. I think it's fantastic.
It's great to hear you even saying that, because I feel like a lot of people that are in maybe your guys' position don't understand that disconnect.
Yeah, no, I haven't even looked. I know nothing about BMAX. I'll look it up, though. That's interesting. ETF and MicroStrategy convertible bonds. So I'll probably take a look at it. But I was very happy with the 26% gains that I had on MSTU and MSTX on Friday while I was driving back in my car and listening to podcasts. That treated me really good. Yeah, back to this point. And then I do want to look at MicroStrategy because that chart's actually phenomenal. Tesla looks good too. It's all very interesting. Not that we can't drop further, that can totally happen, but I do think we're getting bottoming signals and we're preparing, like Mark Newton from FS Insight said, for a bullish divergence to the upside. But this was a great conversation, right? Oh, and we've got discussions right now about Trump's tariff policies with Kevin Hassett. I want to listen to that too in a second. But this is a great conversation because he's like, I'm actually shocked to hear you guys say that nobody cares about the stock market. And instead, the benefit should go to the builders, right? And the people in the manufacturing sector and the people that have been suffering for so long, just like we listened to Batya talking about earlier. That's what should happen. But what people don't realize is they think that it takes years. Everybody, I was listening to all these fucking YouTube videos over the weekend from all these different people, bearish as fuck, saying, oh yeah, in a couple of years, maybe the economy will recover after another major recession. That's not what's going to happen. It's not what's going to happen. And you can quote me right fucking now. That's not going to happen. It's going to recover way quicker than people realize. It's going to recover from 50% reductions in energy costs that go across everything. And Trump even talked about a lot of that this weekend with Dave Ramsey, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I do want to show something real quick here. Let's just look at the chart of MicroStrategy. Let's look at what it did last weekend. So on Friday, not only did we bounce off the 200 daily moving average pretty resoundingly, right? Not only did that happen with MicroStrategy, after dropping a total from the top all the way down to about 57, 58% from where it was at its high, but we broke above the downward channel that started on November 20 of 2024, right? So we've got what, 5 months, almost a half a year that this fucking thing, 4.5 months roughly, 4.5 to 5 months, that we've been in this downtrend, and for the first time, we closed a weekly candle above it. I'm going to say that's bullish, especially when you have 21 billion that you're looking to use to buy more Bitcoin for your fucking company. I just think in MicroStrategy, we've said this before, right? We've said that the biggest vessels will be the ones that go up first. MicroStrategy is by far the biggest vessel, and it will be the one that goes up first. Real quickly, though, I want to get back. I need to look over here, so I'm going to go to live, and I'm going to go back. I want to listen to what Kevin Hassett has to say about these tariffs. They even covered that chart that we talked about. Look at that. Fancy. All right, let's listen to this real quick, and then we'll move on. Lots of good stuff today, guys. Also, let me just look over here real quick. Again, fear and greed from two and a half years ago. That's the levels we're bouncing off of. Let's just look here at data points. So in about 9 minutes, we'll listen to Kevin Hassett, and then we'll probably jump over to this. We'll have retail sales, New York Empire State Manufacturing Index, more retail sales data, business inventories at 9, NAHB Housing Market Index at 9, and retail inventories ex autos at 9 o'clock. So we'll get all those data points. We have inflation data tomorrow coming in for Canada too. That'll be interesting. What do you want to bet that falls through the fucking floor? All good stuff. So we got a lot of interesting things coming up. Let's listen to Kevin. Jesse, would you take a look at MSTY versus MSTR returns? I sent you. Yeah, I saw you do a post. I haven't looked through it, Mark, but I'll take a look at it if nothing else today. And then maybe we can talk about it a little bit tomorrow. MSTY is obviously going to do pretty good during a flat, choppy market. It's gonna be the one that's yielding the greatest returns by far. So like over the last 5 months, that would have been the one. Let's listen real quickly here though. Let me get back. Here we go.
President Trump signed a funding bill to keep the government.
Silas said most Americans benefit from stocks, though. Half of Americans have them, and they support other family members. Yes, that's true, right? Like I bought 5 fucking Teslas, 3 in the last month, and I will be using none of them. My wife gets one though, but my parents get one, my mother-in-law gets one, and my nephew gets one, right? So you're right. We do end up benefiting other people. There's truth to that. But the whole point being is that the bottom half of the economy has not benefited like the upper half has, the people that are invested in stocks. And I believe that everybody should have an investment in stocks. And I actually believe that Brad Gerstner, what he was talking about, I can't remember the program, but where at a young age, everybody basically gets a portfolio that where they're invested in the market, and they can start learning about that from a young age, and they can start benefiting from the country's success, is a way better program than Social Security. So I do believe that there's benefit to stocks, but I think we have to fix the core fundamental issues with our country. We have to make it to where we can fight off China if needed. We have to make it to where we're strong. With strength, we can lead the world again and be the shiny star at the top of the hill. But we can't do that if we're built off of a fake economy that's all finance and has nothing really being built behind it.
Running for the next 6 months, so we got that going for us.
We need more Elon Musk.
More on the budget, tariffs, and taxes. White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. Little did they know back in 1980 that we'd still be using. We got that going for us.
Yes, JT.
Which is nice. It's a Caddyshack reference. I still use it a lot. Let's talk about tariffs, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. Do you want to know the proper way to do it? Are you open to suggestions, Kevin?
You know, from you always, I think the president has a pretty good idea what he's going to do. We've been talking about it all week, but I'd love to hear your advice. Go for it, Joe.
USMCA compliant stuff, don't do it. I don't think we are right now. If we can determine that it's going to be counterproductive to some of our great companies here, and we don't really know what the end site is, for example, fentanyl in Canada and the effect it would have on the automakers. If we know that it's going to cost them billions of dollars to comply with something based on something that's not related at all to the trade, then don't do it. Do all the reciprocal stuff, because here's a chart that I'm going to bring up for you, Kevin, that shows
Joe's getting closer.
That don't know, we still
He's
are
getting closer.
like sort of patsies for the rest of the world.
Yes, JT.
I think we got this. I don't know if you've seen it. Do you got a monitor there? I don't. Maybe you
Yeah,
don't
I
have
can see it. Yeah.
Oh, you can?
I sure can. Yeah.
What's going on there? I mean, what?
You got an excellent team.
Huh?
Yeah. Look at that.
And maybe you can help us. On the light blue are things that basically accomplish the same thing, but.
Do you guys notice how the narrative is changing? Now we actually have CNBC being like, "Hey, maybe tariffs aren't fair. Maybe they're not fair. Maybe the reciprocal tariffs are what we should be doing." And you're going to just see more of this. Again, the 200% increase on European wine and alcoholic exports because of the 50% tariff on whiskey. That's just retaliatory, going back and forth to pressure Europe. The same kind of things with Canada. We're trying to pressure Canada and let them know who the boss is. And again, get rid of fentanyl and get it to where they're playing ball with us. It's starting to work with us more. Over the short term, that will be. You know, it'll be like anything. When you make major changes, you'll get this visceral response from Europe. You'll get this visceral response from Canada. But they will fall in line, because we're going to start getting a bunch of news over the next couple of weeks before the 4-2 reciprocal tariffs about countries that have opened up free trade with us and removed all barriers. Don't you think that'll be fucking positive? I do.
But aren't de facto tariffs. What is that, like VATs? And what other protectionist policies are included there?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it's a little hard to read the labels, but I guess the point is that there are a lot of places out there that have non-tariff barriers and large tariffs that make it hard for American workers.
Imagine the top of the list there. Argentina is going to open up a free trade agreement with us. They've already been talking to us about it. Imagine what happens when the biggest tariff and non-tariff barriers for a country in South America all of a sudden plummet to nothing. I mean, that's going to be a positive headline.
To sell stuff to foreign countries and earn a good living. And that's exactly what the president's been talking about, especially over the last week. You know, we've got a hard deadline.
They're over 500,000, aren't they?
I think be great news for markets once they see the clarity about how reasonable it is to have reciprocal tariffs. There are a heck of a lot of countries that play by the rules, where we have big trade surpluses with the country because they're playing by the rules and don't tariff our products. And then there are a few, just a few really, where the trade deficits are huge, they're persistent, they last for years.
$4.99.
They're doing things like sending autos into the U.S. but not letting our autos go go to their countries and doing it in a way that harms American workers. And so there's a lot of work to be done. But the bottom line for me, Joe, is that I was just looking at the Customs and Border Patrol data for March, for the first week of March. And do you realize that if you run it out over 10 years, the amount of tariff revenue that we've already collected for the actions that we've taken, including some that you just mentioned, adds up to about $1 trillion over 10 years. $1 trillion that we could use to, say, give everybody a tax cut or reduce the deficit. And so that $1 trillion is part of the story, right? So what you're seeing right now is when people are naysayers and getting all upset about, oh, market this, market that, tax hikes, they're thinking that the $1 trillion.
Yeah, see, Trump loves talking about McKinley and how they had received so much in tariff revenue around the time that he was the president that they had to open up commissions to figure out how to spend the money. Again, I don't know that Trump is looking to make a bunch of money off of tariff revenues. It's probably a combination of both, right? It's removing trade barriers for a number of countries in order to be able to open up trade and make it to where we can manufacture into them and send them goods. And then at the same time, it's tariff revenues as well. So maybe it's half the figure that he's talking about or a third of the figure that he's talking about. But then we're opening up our manufacturing base at the same time.
$1 billion is just going to go away. But President Trump's plan is to use the tariff revenue to balance the budget
like a tax,
and to reduce taxes.
That's from us. If let's say China goes down half, or some people, let's say they respond.
It's not from us because you end up having this, you end up having a strengthening and weakening of currencies that occurs when you have heavy tariffs implemented on a country. And so you're going to see a change there in price just from that percentage change in the currency itself. And then at the same time, people are still spending the same amount of money. They're just changing their purchasing power for the most part. A lot of people won't end up spending a lot of money, especially if they're constrained and they believe that their economics are tight. They're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to buy these things because they're more expensive, but I will buy this other thing over here, or they'll shop somewhere else. And so a lot of this trade imbalance, it's a one-time change, and then a lot of it goes away really quickly and is less impactful to the consumer. And people don't realize this, but it's true. Oh, we did get February data. We're going to come back to him in a second. We got February retail sales. Let's just look here real quick, see what we did. It's coming up 3.1%. So we expected 3.5% year over year for the February data, and so that's a little bit lower. Let's look at the trend here real quick. But again, if we're looking, probably can't go out that far, but we can go off, let's say 3 years. So again, if we're looking at this data here, it's been pretty flat. It looked like it was starting to have a pattern going up. I'm not surprised at all to see this go down a little bit. Let's look at some of the other figures. Retail sales ex autos and gas month over month was 0.5%, which is actually better than the consensus of 0.4 and the forecast of 0.2. So if you remove auto and gas, it's actually looking really good. That's fascinating. If you just remove auto, then it's 0.3%. Consensus was 0.4 and forecast was 0.2. So it comes in line. Retail sales control group, I'm not even sure what that is. Let me refresh here real quick. And again, the retail sales month over month was a low number. Consensus was 0.6, forecast was 0.5, so this is coming in lower than expected. I would actually think that this probably increases the odds of another rate cut with sales going down. And the most important thing that I've totally missed here, New York Empire State Manufacturing Index, -20. Let's look at what this was forecast at. This was forecast at 2 and consensus of negative 0.75, and it came in at -20, which is a horrific reading for let's see, March 2025 data. So again, we're seeing pressure applied here. Let's see. I'll check that in a second. Let me just read through here and see it. Decreased by 20 points. New York index, the United States average, it doesn't have any unique points to this. So we'll probably listen to Rick Santel in a second because I want to get his take on what's happening with this. But I would say that we're actually seeing an increase in odds of lowering in the not too distant future. So we'll see what Rick has to say right after we get done listening to Kevin.
Going to be people here raising prices for Americans, right? So that's okay.
If I charge a tax to Joe, then Joe pays the tax mostly. If I charge a tax to a Chinese exporter, then maybe there's a price effect on Joe, but the Chinese exporter is going to pay some tax too. So on net, logically, you got to be better.
They pay tax and they have reduced sales.
Better off.
So they have an incentive to get rid of they have an incentive to get rid of this. It hurts their margins and it reduces it hurts their margins for what they do get in sales, and then at the same time it reduces the sales. So there's a massive incentive for the producer to lower prices or have the tariffs removed.
If you're running the tax through inelastically supplying foreign national, and so the president's vision is just let's use the tariff
and we have
revenue
the deficit. We have a large deficit,
or fair and reciprocal, and use that revenue to lower taxes on ordinary Americans and balance the budget.
Kevin, this is a really important point. I don't know if you just heard Ed Yardeni was with us.
Oh, sure.
He's actually
Old
taking
friend Ed,
his he's taking down his S&P target for the year because of tariffs entirely. He's bringing it down to by about 9% from 7,000 to 6,400. Now 6,400 is still a long way higher from where we are today at 56 and change, but he said without the tariffs, markets would be at new highs right now. And the last thing he said before he left the set just now is that if tariffs are here as a negotiation to try and make sure that we are getting fairer trade, that's one thing. But if the administration is looking at this as a way of raising revenue, as you just laid out, to replace personal and corporate taxes, he said that he does not agree with at all, and he thinks will have more negative impacts on the markets. What would you say to him? Because what you just laid out sounds like this is a long-term structural change where you're planning on getting revenue from this. And that's going to be something for not just the markets, but for businesses to try and contend with.
Right. You know, there's a lot to unpack, but look at it this way. Ed, I'm sure you're
Market's
still
going higher. It's liking this weaker data.
We've got persistent trade
Bad
deficits.
news is good news.
With Europe and with China and with South Korea that have been there for year after year after year. And if you look at why those trade deficits exist, it's because they have non-tariff barriers and high tariffs that make it hard for U.S. Firms to compete. Now, if you think that they're going to reduce all those barriers right away, then you think that this is a negotiation that's going to end, I guess Ed thinks ends well. Our expectation is there are going to be a lot of countries that do respond favorably to President Trump's negotiation. President Trump is very flexible. He said that over and over. But my guess is there are going to be a lot of countries that don't, that they're stuck in their ways.
Exactly what I was saying.
And the countries that don't are going to have to pay the tariffs, right? That's the way it is.
That's it.
And so I think there will be revenue. And we're already seeing it. If you think about it, the increase in the tariff on China to 20% has produced an enormous revenue burst for the U.S. over the last month. And it doesn't feel like China is really going to change very much. And the China deficit is what, about a third or 40% of the overall deficit. And so that right there is revenue that we can use to cut taxes on ordinary Americans.
You know, Kevin, as for bringing a lot of the manufacturing back here, that just, you know, Americans are we like instant gratification. So, I mean, isn't there anything faster than a microwave? I mean, I'm waiting and waiting, like, oh my God, 30 seconds, you know, to cook it. That was from from Homer. He's like, don't, is there anything faster than a mic? But I don't think you'd see the effects of this in terms of, you know, suddenly Michigan or Ohio or any of those great states that lost so many industries. That won't be back for years, even if you do try to do these things.
I thought that too, Joe, but then I was fiddling with the data as we're getting ready to meet with the president and the vice president last week. And one of the things I noticed was that the capacity utilization rate for autos in the U.S. was around 80% pre-COVID under President Trump, and it's around 60% now. And so one reason why we had 9,000 auto jobs created in the last jobs report is that we've got all this excess capacity in auto manufacturing in the U.S. And so as we go towards reciprocal trade, I really expect that there are going to be tens of thousands of auto jobs created this year, and you already saw it in the last month because capacity utilization is so low. So Joe Biden let, like many other things, the auto industry get out of control, and President Trump is out there fixing it.
So as far as the reciprocal tariffs are one thing, is there any softening on some of the positions on tariffs that don't seem to have a clear rationale? And that critics, and there are many across the board, you see it, Kevin, that say it's, you know, we're not really sure what it's going to be. It changes by the hour. Ed Yardeni said the market seems to go up on days when, you know, we haven't heard new utterances about tariffs.
I think there should be clarity, absolute clarity. The president is clear that we're going to have reciprocal.
Getting it now?
Well, yeah, I mean, April 2nd, you're going to see the reciprocal tariffs. Between now and then, we've been in a negotiation with flexibility with Mexico and Canada, and we've got the border under control, and we're making a huge amount of progress on fentanyl. Those have both been very positive developments that were related to the tariff policy. But yeah, absolutely, between now and April 2nd, there'll be some uncertainty, but as April comes along, markets will see that the reciprocal trade policy makes a great deal of sense, and that for a lot of countries, they play by the rules. They're not going to be very upset at all at the way that the U.S. moves.
Which countries are best positioned, do you think, to go I probably can't go person to person with the United States? I mean, China probably doesn't need to fear us as much as maybe, I don't know, some countries that aren't economic power.
China totally needs to fear us. They need to massively fear us. It's going to be incredibly detrimental. They can't have, despite what you might think is going on with China, because the way the press is working and the propaganda arm of China, they are not doing well. They're at a devastating place. These tariffs will not fucking help them. All the stuff you've been seeing for the last couple of months about China being so great, it's all propaganda, and it's a push by the government to get a bunch of money into their country so that they can survive a little bit longer. I hope people realize that.
Powerhouses, but even China, I would think, doesn't need to be doesn't need to exacerbate the situation, especially if they know there's certain things that they're doing that an objective person would say is unfair.
Right. Well, I think that what's going on, right, is that China is subsidizing production and selling stuff to U.S. consumers in order to create political stability at home, even if they lose money on that subsidized production. And so China's doing that.
They're losing tons of money.
Europe for sure does that. And after that, we could go down the list. But I think that there are a couple of countries that are basically addicted to subsidized jobs. They subsidize, on the back of the U.S. consumer. I think there are a heck of a lot of countries that just play by the rules, that don't have tariffs, that don't have non-tariff barriers, that have trade surpluses with the U.S. And I think that if you're trying to think, we don't have to go through the list. We'll have a list for you on the 2nd of April. But if you go through the list, you're going to see there are a heck of a lot of countries that are performing very, very well. They respect the rules. They're great allies, and they're not, playing favorites.
Just even China, though, I would think, like I said, I don't know who can really decide to make this protracted, and I think we should see some movement. Maybe that's what the president is counting on. Maybe then it won't be such a long process. We got 15 seconds. I got to go. Thanks, Kevin Hassett.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks,
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, so that was great. That was great data coming from Kevin. So again, I think what he was talking about, I think we're going to see a combination of revenues coming in, where we're going to see a tariff revenue coming in, and that's going to be beneficial for our country. And at the same time, we're going to see trade barriers lowered. And at the same time, we're going to see more companies moving manufacturing into the United States, giving a bunch of people jobs. We'll probably see tons of automation too. Anybody telling you that all these things are negative, they're not real. They don't understand what they're looking at. They don't understand that fundamentals matter more than a bunch of trickery, right? Where we got my friend Victor here talking about how his job sucks right now because it looks like they're going to move purchasing over to Poland and India from Spain. And that is Europe. Everybody's trying to get the fuck out, just like they're trying to get the fuck out of China. If the companies and the foreign investors are trying to get the fuck out, it doesn't matter if idiots in retail or hedge funds are buying the fucking stocks for these companies. If all the industry is fucking leaving, that's not good. It's not good for these economies, especially when you've got Germany and you've got Europe talking about spending $1 trillion in defense for Ukraine. It's just absurdity. It's absurdity, these heavily indebted countries. And you got debt to GDP for China. That's 3x what ours is. I'll show some of that in a little bit, but let's keep rolling through the list here. We got a lot to talk about. I'm very bullish on what's happening right now in the economy. TLT, I could see TLT continuing to roll over. Today it's actually turning negative again. And I don't exactly know why, but the 10 years turning up, the 2 years turning up. And so we're getting a little bit of a bounce on these. I think that's going to be very short-lived, though. But again, the TLT is more of an insurance play. The bulk of my monies, the other 4/5 of my money plus, is actually in the market, and Bitcoin, Tesla, ARKG, and other investments that are long. And so that's where the bulk of my money is, especially with a heavyweight on Bitcoin right now and Bitcoin related investments. So I that's where I'm expecting to make the most. The rest of it is a hedge in case that doesn't happen, where I can buy the dip and benefit. And that hedge could come in very, very valuable in the next like 2 to 3 months. But again, that's not where I'm trying to make the bulk of my money. I'm trying to make it on Bitcoin. All right, so Steve Burns said there are 3 bear markets in 5 years is something we've never seen before. The previous closest 3 bears was 6.9 years between 1966 and 73. I would argue that we're the exact opposite of the early 70s. We're not going to see high energy prices. We're going to see the exact opposite of that. We're going to see incredibly low energy prices. And in a second, we'll listen to Trump and why he believes that to be true. Imagine what happens to the markets when people figure out that they're wrong and that we're really doing great. So this has Kobayashi letter, and he says, Americans have rarely been so pessimistic about the future. U.S. consumers' expectations about their financial situation over the next 5 years is down to an 11-year low. Isn't it fascinating that people's thoughts about their financial future is down to an 11-year low at a time where we've seen direction of the country at a 21-year high? Isn't that fascinating? Does that fascinate everybody else? It certainly fucking fascinates me. Financial outlook has deteriorated over the last year as inflation remains a major issue among households. In fact, 40% of respondents of the University of Michigan is utter fucking trash. Don't look at politically biased fucking surveys to find the truth. You're not going to find it. All right. I said this, the party isn't over. This is this from a few days ago, but I'm going to hit it again real quick while we're here. When you're looking at CapEx spending from Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, and Meta that dwarfs what was done in 2024, and you're looking at buybacks of well over $1 trillion this year, I find it hard to believe. Actually, maybe that was for a quarter. I find it hard to believe that things are going to be so bad. Real quickly, I wanted to hit a couple of things here real quick. So this is from Joe Rogan. He asked a really good question. This is jumping topics a little bit here, but why is it bad for Polish people to have a bunch of white people and be ethnically pure, but China can do that and that doesn't fucking matter at all?
A thing when an all-white country wants to stay all white, where people get very nervous of. If you have, let's say China, like China is Chinese people. We all agree that it's filled primarily with Chinese people. There's people that live there from all walks of life, all over the world, but it's mostly Chinese people. If China
they also don't allow heavy immigration,
had decided that they wanted to remain Chinese and stay Chinese, and that being Chinese was very important to what China is, no one would have a problem with that.
Yeah.
When a country like Poland does it, you're like, oh, those white people, they want to keep everybody out. They want it to be all white.
Yeah, and
because that's post World War II. That's post Aryan.
So again, yes, there's this stigma where you can't have where there should be just unfettered immigration into countries that are white. They should be mixed with all kinds of different things and just be a bunch of fucking soup. But that same thing doesn't have to apply for other countries around the world that are like let's say Africa. You don't need to have a bunch of white people in there, do you? Nope. China. Nope. Don't need to have a bunch of that. We just got a message about MicroStrategy buys more Bitcoin. That's what I'm fucking talking about. All right, let's look at this real quick. Let's find MicroStrategy bought more Bitcoin. Let's see what we got. 1 second here. That's probably going to be a decent narrative today. MicroStrategy down 0.77% in pre-market after running 13% before. Let's see here. MicroStrategy, where are we at? Where'd they announce it? 40 minutes. Strategy has acquired 130. Little baby buy. Got us to 499,226. So no major purchase yet, but just a little baby buy. That's okay though. We don't mind that. As long as they keep buying, that's what I care about. Michael Saylor's strategy said it bought. Yes, that's what we have here. I don't know if there's any more news to that. You guys let me know if there is. We're going to jump back over here. But again, I think there's a clear double standard here that's odd. Also, apparently, Hong Kong private enterprise Hutchinson will be punished by China for selling its assets at the Panama Canal. Tell me again about the freedom of private companies in China. So again, this just shows more hypocrisy, right? We can tell that China was using this for military purposes because they're angry that they've lost control of this channel. Isn't that fascinating? I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating that this is a thing. I put China is almost 3x the debt to GDP of the USA. They're showing, this guy must not have liked my post where I said some people are so fucking stupid. Let's see if he blocked me. I didn't say he was. I mean, he is. But this is funny. China is demonstrating global leadership, like it or not. That's hilarious to me. Because again, when you have a debt to GDP that's like 3x what the United States has, and people are worried about the United States and our fiscal ability to repay ourselves, per Ray Dalio talking last week, you would think that China would be at the spotlight of this, right? But it is not. The narrative for China has been everything they've been pushing on YouTube. You got Chinese, anybody who's like perceived as anti-China, like China fact checkers and like Serpinza and like a bunch of these other YouTubers, they have seen a massive reduction in the amount of viewership that they're getting. It's obvious that they're being suppressed. But then at the same time now, if you just type in China and look stuff up on YouTube, you'll see like, look at the next 90 city in Zhuangzhou or something. And it's all positive. It's all like they're beating us in AI. They're beating us in robotics. And it's all bullshit. It's all a house of cards. I want people to know that. They need to know that. Let's read this here. China, Xi Jinping rejects European Union invitation to attend the EU-China summit. We got a community note. Of course we do. I bet somebody who's Chinese put it in here. Traditionally, EU-China summits alternate between Brussels and Beijing, with the Chinese premier attending the Brussels meetings and Xi hosting the summit in Beijing. China is only abiding by tradition in sending Premier Li Qiang to the... Yeah, and he also doesn't like to leave the country because I think he's afraid that they're gonna overthrow him while he's gone. So a bunch of good... look at this. And Jeff Lutz is getting it lately. I love that, man. He says, if you've ever set up manufacturing, distribution, import, export out of China, you would know about the layering of various taxes, tariffs, VATs, and you as an outsider and the opposite for domestic manufacturing. One can see it in the end results. Very little imports, as Michael calls out. So it says, China, the forever king of tariffs. It's no secret that President Trump loves tariffs. I'm the tariff man, he declares, with zero trace of inhibition. What is less well known is that China embraces tariffs in a big way, too. And China's love affair with tariffs, quite almost clandestine, has been going on for decades. A tall, imposing brick wall of taxes on imports, blended with targeted industrial investments, have played a pivotal... Targeted industrial investments is an interesting way of wording it. They essentially say, we're going to own the EV auto sector. We're going to own the solar sector. We're going to own the robotic... They literally just pour in tons of money, print shit tons of it that they can't afford to print in order to be able to punish other economies around the world and prevent them from being able to produce the goods at anything that's at a comparable rate. So yeah, they haven't been playing fair for a very long time, and all of that is getting ready to change. Let's just read through the rest of this here real quick. It says, how powerful? In 2024 alone, China ran a $1 trillion trade surplus with the world. $1 trillion. China's car market offers a dramatic illustration of what tariffs can do. Of the 25 million vehicles sold in China last year, 24.2 million, a staggering 97%, were manufactured inside the country. Imports were a mere rounding error. Continue reading the Dune Insights newsletter. You can find the link below. So just pointing out how they're strangulating other industries around the world. But again, just like how Chinese people can remain pure and not have other ethnicities coming into their country and taking over, it's okay if China does this. It's bad if the United States starts to implement fair trade and tariffing with China. That's bad, right? That's bad for the world. But if China does it, it's okay. If China remains ethnically pure, it's okay. It's all very fascinating stuff. I love the turn that Jeff is taking where he's calling out this bullshit. All right, let's jump around here real quick. Lots going on. So again, my friend Felix, he's trying to sell some course or something down at the bottom. Whatever. I'm not really big about that. But I do like the fact that he brought this up. He said how Trump plans to fix America's broken economy faster than economists thought was possible. I 100% agree with this. He said America's economy is broken, families are suffering, and in this exclusive interview with Dave Ramsey gets Trump to reveal his unconventional blueprint for economic revival that Washington insiders don't want you to hear, a conversation that could change everything. Again, I reshared this. If you guys could like this to help him out, I would appreciate it. You don't have to buy his course. America is drowning in financial chaos. $8 eggs, actually $4 now. $5 gas, actually like half that now. 7% interest rates, getting lower in the sixes. Housing prices that leave families desperate. This isn't just inflation. It's economic warfare against regular Americans. I 100% agree. It's crazy that he's the person calling this out because, again, he lives in Hong Kong. I think he still does. I think it's highest inflation we've ever had. There's ever been a mess like this. So Trump talking about the inflation being super high. His solution shocked Dave Ramsey, talking about cutting energy prices in half. I do want to listen to this one real quick here.
I believe I'll be able to get energy down to 50%, 50% of what it is right now
in his first year.
In a period of less than a year.
Wow.
That's pretty good. It's going to happen fast, okay? It's going to happen fast.
Well, what are you going to do to do that? What causes that?
They're going to drill. They're going to frack. They're going to do things that they have tremendous
So taking the regs off. Taking the regulation
off. We have to. They put them back on. They put regulations back on. That areas that have no environmental real meaning, they don't let them drill. They're taking leases away, government leases that you're hearing about. I think we can get energy costs down to half of what they. If we do that,
that's pretty dramatic.
Everything, all of those.
So yes, and what does that entail? Let's look at it here, real quick. 1 second.
I don't know if people realize that 10 to 15% of the entire economy is energy,
right,
and it weaves its tentacles through everything else.
Literally everything else. So if you can lower energy prices, you lower transportation costs, you lower the cost that it creates to produce the good at every stage of the production. It's huge. Also, the stuff that's happening in the Red Sea, we're doing that because if we don't fix that problem in the Red Sea, where with the Yemeni Houthis in Yemen, basically trying to destroy us and prevent the United States and Israel from being able to transport goods from there, we have to go all the way through the southern part of Africa, and all the way back around. It costs a lot of extra money. That's why we're willing to bury the Houthis into the fucking dirt in order to be able to fix this. It also would help the rebels that are starving to death. And I'll show you some of that here in a little bit, too.
So $5 gas affects the bread truck who's delivering the bread, and that affects the cost of the bread then. And so getting that plentiful,
right,
change.
And again, so this is huge, right? Look at this. Trump's energy independence blueprint. Unleash the drilling at unprecedented levels. Eliminate regulations that strangle production. Restart the Keystone Pipeline immediately. Develop Anwar in Alaska, potentially larger than the Saudi Arabia's reserves. Larger than the Saudi Arabia's reserves. Larger than the Saudi Arabia's reserves. We're going to open up everything. We're opening up everything when it comes to energy, and we're doing it fast and fucking furious. What happens when Wall Street realizes that?
But the first thing you have to do is get the energy down. If you get the energy down, other things are going to follow. You want to get the interest rates down too. And interestingly, even interest rates are going to follow energy because it's going to take that burden off the shoulders of the economy and off the shoulders of inflation itself. And we are going to drill at a level that you haven't seen since, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago. But even more so, we would have been so dominant by this point. If you remember, when you go back to the beginning of this really failed administration that we're in right now, what they did was they turned off the energy. They turned off everything that I had built.
This is the formula in Europe too, guys. Like again, Germany turning off nuclear reactors and then having to rely on coal again. It's all about zero carbon, blah, blah, blah footprint. That's the same bullshit with Mark Carney in Canada that he's talked about. The carbon tax that he's taken away, but not really taken away. It's all bullshit. And then at the same time, you've got coal production increasing across China. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Turn back on the Keystone. You're going to turn back on the drill baby drill line and the in your acceptance speech at the convention.
Sure. It says it all. I'd like to use another line, but there's no line that's better. And we're going to drill baby drill. But the fact that they turned it off and then the energy, if you look back at the very initial period of their administration, the numbers started going through the roof, the energy numbers. Inflation was good. And then they went back to Trump, where they're trying to equal it. And it kept it bad as opposed to horrific. And it's been really bad. And the energy has been very expensive, but nothing like it could have been.
So again, I just want to reiterate, these things are going to happen, and this and more. And we're going to see energy expanding like crazy. And he's going to drop energy prices by 50%. He's already doing that. Again, we've got a little baby bounce over here in U.S. oil, just like MicroStrategy's baby bounce purchase in Bitcoin. But this isn't going to last, and it's going to roll over. And yeah, again, remember how everybody over here, guys, at $130 a barrel was talking about 200. This technical pattern is meant to break down. What happens when the war with Russia and Ukraine ends? What happens when that ends? And then we've got contracts with Ukraine for rare earth elements, and we've got contracts with Russia for rare earth elements. We've got contracts with Russia for oil and energy production because they have the largest reserves on fucking earth of all these things. The richest country in the world should be Russia. Based upon mineral access and resources, but they're not. So what happens when we start working with them again to be able to pull all this stuff in? It's going to help a lot. The manufacturing renaissance begins with slashing corporate taxes from 21% to 15%. Again, lowering corporate taxes even more, allowing everybody that builds here that doesn't want to get tariffed to shit, that builds in the United States to fully depreciate their corporations in the first year, while at the same time having corporate tax rates that are way better than they are under Trump's corporate tax reduction, and getting even better, again, with all these other tax benefits in the country, too, to increase spending in the country for service and commodities. It's going to be, it's so good. And nobody sees it yet, and it pisses me off. I look at these viewership counts, and I'm not even breaking 1,000. These people who aren't showing up today, you're fucking missing out, and that's your problem. How to protect American jobs, tariffs. I've saved our steel industries by putting 50 to 100% tariffs on steel that China came in and dumped. So again, it's all these things. It's protecting our industries. It's making it to where we're able to prosper going forward. Oh, and this is a good one. He's talking about President McKinley. Let's listen to this. This is a good one. It's only 42 seconds. Let's jam out to it.
Have tariffs. The country was
Andy.
at the richest point in its history in the 1890s. It was all tariffs. If you looked at William McKinley as an example, he was a big tariff president. They had committees that were put in.
And remember, we're operating at a huge deficit. That deficit gives us amazing power with tariffs because we're buying all the goods. And if these countries, it's not like they can easily sell to other fucking places. Europe isn't getting richer overnight, no matter how much fucking money they print. Their debt on their interest isn't any better than ours. It's getting worse, okay? Interest rates and on bonds in Europe are exploding higher. And then China's got the opposite problem. Their interest rates are through the floor because everybody's given up on their fucking economy. So these places, they don't have sectors that are willing to buy at all. They need us desperately.
Charge of what to do with the money. We were taking in so much money. And McKinley would say, why should we let other people come in and steal our factories and steal our workers and steal our jobs? And why shouldn't we benefit? And he tariffed the other countries. And we made so much, and then they went to the income tax system later on. But they would actually they had a blue ribbon committee. Our country was so rich, they didn't know what to do with the money. Have tariffs. The country.
So I think we're going to see that again. I strongly believe that. Felix said when economists predicted Trump's tax cuts 39% to 21% would slash revenue, reality said otherwise. In the first full year, we took in much more money than at the 39%. So again, we're looking at Trump cutting corporate tax rates to some of the lowest on the planet outside of Poland, Poland is the best performing fucking country economically outside of China in the last 1 to 2 decades, okay? Poland. And we're outside of them, and we're a much bigger economy. We're going to have the lowest corporate tax rate on the planet, like literally of any major economy. So, and revenues went up, right? The economy exploded, proving the Laffer curve correct. 100% agree. Again, if you guys could go out here and click on Felix's post and give it some love, I would appreciate it. He said, if she got elected, this country's going bust. 1929 depression. Yes, it would have been a depression if we would have had Kamala Harris get elected. We're lucky that did not happen. He said, while economists debate theories in ivory towers, Trump's plan attacks the crisis with surgical precision. I 100% fucking agree with you, Felix. Target energy to kill inflation at its source. Reward companies that create American jobs. Protect those jobs with strategic tariffs. Unleash small business. 60% of all jobs. This is a great job by Felix. Again, guys, if you could give him some love. Understanding these economic realities isn't just about politics. It's about protecting your family's financial future, your investment portfolio, your retirement accounts, and savings are all at risk. Knowledge is your best defense in uncertain times. While most Americans remain unaware of what's happening, you can position yourself to survive and even thrive in what's coming. Thank you for reading. Again, video credits here. I'm going to actually publish that video, because I think that's a good one for people to watch. And then, his little Felix and Friend thing down at the bottom. But again, I thought it was a great post. I wanted to talk to it because I thought it had a lot of good points in it. Let's keep going down. We got Trump meeting with Putin today to end the war in Ukraine. It says President Trump told reporters on Air Force One tonight that its upcoming call with Putin might lead to a major announcement about ending the Ukrainian conflict. If that happens, it's going to be a huge bonus. Doesn't have to happen. We will see if we have something to announce maybe by Tuesday. I'll be speaking to President Putin on Tuesday. A lot of work's been done over the weekend. Oh, I'm sorry. So tomorrow he'll be speaking to him. A lot of work's been done over the weekend. We want to see if we can bring that war to an end. Trump also revealed they'll discuss dividing up certain assets, including land and power plants. All good stuff. All good stuff heading in the right direction to a peace deal. If we can get a 30-day peace deal and we have contracts with these guys and they're like, okay, we can start making money and we can get them to stop fighting, maybe there's some fucking promise here. We'll see. Again, it's a long way off from perfection, but it's good. Also, I just want to take a shot at this. It says, if you cannot see how insanely sick and brainwashed and abusive this behavior is towards children, no less, I don't think you could be helped. You will affirm this young lady immediately by disrobing in her presence without protest. Fuck that. Fuck that. My daughter doesn't need to get undressed in front of any fucking man because he thinks, even if he has a dick, that he's a woman. I don't give a shit. Fuck you. Go to a different room or sit in your own fucking room by yourself. I do not give a shit. My daughter does not need to be subjected to this. It's fucking disgusting. And it's not a world that she needs to live on. And if that's the hill that the Democrats want to die on, I think your popularity is going to get even lower. Patrick Bet David, this is bad news for Fauci, Miley, January 6th committee, and Biden's family members. So listen to this. This is what Trump said today, I believe, or last night. Sorry. The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the Unselect Committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by autopen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. Now they got to prove that he did. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the Unselect Committee, who's they were called the Select Committee, he's just fucking with, who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people should fully understand that they are subject to investigation at the highest levels. The fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge and consent of the worst president in history, our country, crooked Joe Biden. So he is throwing down the fucking gauntlet right now. Also, he said no exceptions for everyone pays up on steel and aluminum. Trump just made it official. The 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum are here to stay. No country is getting a free pass. And because these are critical. These are critical and we need them. And he said, and that's not at all starting April 2. If a country, that's not at all. Starting April 2nd, if a country taxes U.S. goods, Americans will tax theirs right back immediately. Again, this is going to be reciprocal. So anybody trying to retaliate against, he's implementing the first set of tariffs that he wanted to do, the ones that really matter. And then he said, any country fucks with us and raises them, we'll immediately raise them again in a tariff war. So this is what's happening. Again, maybe we have down pressure in the market to begin the start of this week. I am really not worried about it. I will be a buyer into this week in markets. TLT looks like it's up 0.43% today. I'll be buying pretty slow, but I will be a buyer in these markets if we continue to see them decline. because I believe that we're doing stuff that's going to be huge and hugely beneficial in the months and quarters ahead for the U.S. economy, way quicker than people are talking about right now. So again, this is what's happening. This is what's coming. Get used to it. We're not lowering those tariffs. We need key critical industries. We're not fucking around. Again, this is about talking with Putin. Incredible. Trump signed an order to eliminate 8 federal agencies. So let's just look through this real quick here. The order of Trump's latest attack on the deep state, the unconstitutional array of unaccountable independent agencies. He's giving agency heads 7 days to justify their existence or face the chopping block. Hint, they can't. Which ones? Voice of America's corrupt Marxist parent, USAGM, Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service, Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, Arctic Research Commission, and more. The question is, why is any of this a part of government? Huge last night, VOA nominee told staff to check emails immediately. Multiple employees already placed on administrative leave. The $900 million agency that Trump's been gunning for since term 1 is finally on the block. Why this matters? The USAGM reaches 100-plus countries and 60-plus languages. During the Cold War, it was a voice of hope to millions enslaved by communism. No longer, it is irredeemably communist itself. This is great. And this is great. Oh, and this is G. Van Fleet. She's great. She's very anti-communist. She said, it's official. Voice of America is finally shut down. Under Mao, listening to the Voice of America was a crime punishable by death. Yet many people still risk their lives to tune in, seeking real information from America, the land of freedom. When the ban was finally lifted, VOA became a vital part of college life. But over the decades, VOA, like all American institutions, has been heavily infiltrated by American Marxists. So again, this thing that was set out to be the counter of that is now fully that. Did Rick Santelli speak yet? He did. Yeah, about retail sales. The shift is particularly evident in Mandarin service, which has become a tool of the Chinese Communist Party. And again, so all these things that were set to be the opposite of that are now that. And we're getting rid of it, and it's all getting shut down, and I think that's fucking beautiful. He said, Rod said, now conservative icon Brent Bozell, nephew of William F. Buckley and founder of the Media Research Center, conservative watchdog, is nominated to lead what's left of it. Brent will take a blowtorch to it. So, again, all this stuff's going away. The bureaucracy's going away. The tools of the left are going away. They're getting destroyed. Let's listen to Marco Rubio talk about the last 18 months with the Houthis and what we're going to be doing next.
Well, first of all, the problem here is that this is a very important shipping lane, and in the last year and a half, the last 18 months, the Houthis have struck or attacked 174 naval vessels of the United States, attacking the U.S. Navy directly 174 times, and 145 times they've attacked commercial shipping. So we basically have a band of pirates, with guided precision anti-ship weaponry, and exacting a toll system in one of the most important shipping lanes in the world. That's just not sustainable. We are not going to have these people controlling which ships can go through and which ones cannot. And so your question is, how long will this go on? It will go on until they no longer have the capability to do that.
Well, what does U.S. intelligence tell us at this point? Because the U.S. had been conducting strikes for some time, but has not stopped the Houthis. So what's going to be different right now? Do you have more fidelity in the intelligence that would make this more successful?
Well, those strikes were a retaliation strike. So they launched one missile, we hit the missile launcher, or we sent something to do it. This is not a message. This is not a one-off. This is an effort to deny them the ability to continue to constrict and control shipping. And it's just not going to happen. We're not going to have these guys, these people with weapons able to tell us where our ships can go, where the ships of all the world can go, by the way. It's not just the U.S. We're doing the world a favor. Yeah. We're doing the entire world a favor by getting rid of these guys and their ability to strike global shipping. That's the mission here, and it will continue until that's carried out. That never happened before. The Biden administration didn't do that. All the Biden administration.
So again, that's the key point, right? We will bury them into the fucking earth if they continue to disrupt shipping lanes and attack U.S. ships and attack shipping vessels that are U.S. flagged or that they think have U.S. goods on them. We will bury them into the fucking ground. That's all you need to know, Houthis. That's all you need to know. You are gone. We will wipe you from this fucking earth, and we will do it in record fashion. All right, we already saw that one. A miracle has happened. The New York Times ran an op-ed acknowledging not only that COVID virus was likely originated in a lab, but that the government officials and scientists conspired to keep the substantiating evidence secret. This is just, people are hearing the truth for the first time ever, guys. Inevitable West said you don't need mass deportations. You just need to remove all the benefits and they'll deport themselves. I 100% agree. And that's what the app's doing too here. Let's listen real quickly to this young lady. I love it. You can tell she's like probably mulatto. She's half and half. Doubt that's her real hair color, but I love what she's representing.
You know, I never get into politics, but the ignorance is just so loud that I just simply cannot ignore it. Why are y'all so mad at this man being in office exposing the corruption within the government? There has never been a president in office exposing the wrongdoing of what's actually going on behind the scenes. Even when Barack Obama was in office, all of this stuff was happening with taxpayers' money. It didn't just begin now. It didn't just start now. You have Jasmine Crockett, who makes $180,000 a year. However, her net worth is what? Was it 20 million? Make it make sense. You also have this lady.
I love how much the voice is getting out there to like everyday people, and they're starting to understand what's happening. This is a video. I won't play the whole thing, but this is probably a legal immigrant that was a part of a CDL program where he doesn't even speak any fucking English, and he just killed 5 people and injured 11 because he was a dipshit driving his truck like a fucking moron. And this black trucker is like, "What the fuck were you doing? You killed all these people. What the fuck were you doing? I drive a truck. That was completely insane what you were doing with this thing." And he murdered all these fucking people. This stuff will stop. These programs will not exist. Oh, by the way, there's a new script that's been downloaded to the Democratic Party. Let's listen to her keywords.
The strength that we have is in this moment.
In this moment.
Listen to your constituents. Center them in this moment.
But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment.
No, I think about what's happening, in this moment.
What's important is that we meet this moment.
So.
Again, just the same bullshit. They're all just a bunch of fucking talking heads. Department of Education is laundering money back to the Democratic Party. Let's listen to the very beginning of this.
So is the Doge program targeted at these bureaucrats?
Yes.
And so what can you expect?
Well, let's look at the Department of Education. The Federal Department of Education has a budget of about $280 billion a year. Less than 25% goes to educating our students. So where does the other $220 billion go? It goes to a bureaucracy. It goes to
$220 billion going to bureaucracy. That's probably not a good thing. So the point I'm trying to get across here is that if you think the stock market is going to do really bad in the future because we're doing all the fucking right things that we should be doing right now, that's not going to be a winning play for you. Okay? The fact that we're imposing tariffs because they should be imposed so that we can create more open trade, the fact that we're going to be reducing taxes in the future for corporations and individuals, boosting our economy, the fact that we're opening up trade routes that should be fucking open, the fact that we're literally doing everything with Doge that we should be doing to make it to where we're a country that can pay its fucking bills again, at a time where other countries like China and like Europe are doing bullshit in order to be able to just expand their balance sheets even more at a time where they can't afford it. And you're putting your investment dollars there. I saw a chart from like Financial Times that showed that Canada and China were on their way up in an economic cycle. That is fucking bullshit. If you're stupid enough to believe that, you deserve to lose all your fucking money. We're doing what's right. We're doing what's right. We will benefit from that in every fucking possible way. 50% reductions in energy costs will benefit us dramatically. Okay? If you don't know that, you're going to figure it out soon enough. So, again, you could be on the wrong side of history if you want. I would try and find the fucking truth. I would try and figure out where we are 3 to 6 months from now. That's what really matters. And you can ignore it or not. It's up to you. Real quickly here, I'm actually going to probably go back and let you guys listen to Rick Santelli and these guys talk about the retail sales stuff while I get some coffee. So we can get their take. Let me know if I miss anything. Give me 2 minutes here, and I'll be right back.
Dow futures are off by about 115 points. S&P futures are down, but just by about 5 points. The NASDAQ has turned positive. It's up by a couple of points. Actually, never mind. Scratch that. It's down. Treasuries this morning have been looking relatively flat in terms of the yield. The 2 years picked up a little bit, 4.02%. The 10 years at 4.29. And then oil prices, which have actually turned around a bit. They're up by 1.2% to $67.99. So WTI almost back to $70 or $68 a barrel. Rick Santelli is standing by at the CME in Chicago. And Rick, we've been awaiting these numbers. Take it away.
Yes, we're waiting, obviously, retail sales. We also have Empire Manufacturing. On retail sales, do remember, last month was on the weak side. Here we go. Our February read, this is the advance on retail sales, up 0.2 on headline. That's a real disappointment, up 0.2. Now, it is the best of the year because we haven't had a positive number, as I referenced. We were down 0.9 in January. That was the worst, basically, in close to 2 years. You have to go back to March of 23 to find a more negative month-over-month change. Many were expecting a better bounce. And if we look at X-Auto, hold on. Minus 0.9 now becomes minus 1.2, which equals where we were in November of 22. To find a bigger negative month-over-month change, you're in July of 21. Now, let's strip out autos, up 0.3. That's a pretty good number. That's about what we were expecting, up 0.3. And last month's minus 0.4 now becomes minus 0.6. Minus 0.6 would equal Jan of 24 to find a bigger negative. You're in March of 23. So rear view mirror, really nasty numbers. Bounce back is not as much as many would have thought. Let's look at ex-autos and gas. We continue to improve, up 0.5%. This is the first number that actually bests expectations. My numbers were looking for up 0.4. In the rear view mirror, also a bigger negative, minus 0.5% becomes now minus 0.8. Minus 0.8 in the rear view mirror, with the worst going back to March of 23. And if I look at up 0.5%, that equals where we were in December. To find a better number, you're going to June of 24. So that's a pretty good number. And finally, let's look at Control Group, which is the core retail sales. And this is actually a good positive. Watch rates go up on the core, up 1%. That's 2.5 times the 0.4 we were expecting. And in the rearview mirror, a bigger negative revision, but I looking at the bounce, it negates it. We went from minus 0.8 to minus 1%. Now we're at positive 1%. I also referenced we had Empire Manufacturing. I like this one because it's a March number. Minus 20. I was looking for minus 2, maybe minus 3. Minus 20 would be the worst month-over-month change since January of 24. That's a little less than a year.
Son of a bitch.
Interest rates went up a little bit on the better control number. They came down a bit, so we're at 4.30 in a 10-year. That's about down 1 basis point. That's a couple basis points better than it was before the number. And you are seeing just a smidge of a...
Hey guys, I hate to do this. My main fucking screen just went out, and the only way I'm getting this shit to work is with a reboot, which sucks. I don't think there's any other way I can fix it. So as much as I don't want to, I think we're going to actually have to stop the stream here. Again, super bummer. There's this issue with static electricity sometimes with my hi-fi man and my headset, where if I touch something or create static, it will like reorient the monitors. It doesn't happen too often, but it just fucking happened right now, and it's not letting me stream to my main screen. So I'm pretty fucked. So I think we'll have to call it here actually, so that I can fix this. So I apologize. We won't be able to run till 9 and look at that data point. We won't be able to do the live. I apologize. But if nothing else, again, we can just pick it up tomorrow. I do think, I just want to end this real quick here. I do think that the market, maybe it has a little bit of a test down this morning. I think this week is looking pretty good. And I'm a buyer on a dip, probably a slow buyer, but I'm a buyer on a dip because I think that, again, there's a lot of really positive things going on in this world right now, and you need to realize that, and you need to focus on that. Don't focus on all the fucking noise. Focus on the benefits to our economy and to our country and to the markets by the middle half of this next year, because I think it's really going to be positive. Where I was thinking before that, our economy would be falling apart by the end of the year, I don't know that it will. We might see a cycle peak in Bitcoin and some of these other things. Maybe even it drifts in a little bit into 2026. But I'm starting to think that we're going to see a really, really, really strong economy, one that melts up before we have any kind of real issues. So anyways, that's my take. Love you guys. And sorry again that this happened. I'll get it fixed, though, and we'll make sure it doesn't happen tomorrow. Peace out.